Evening, I'd like to call the March 15th meeting of the Marshfield Conservation Commission to order. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And in the absence of the chair, as vice chair, I'd like to assume the duties of the chair. Somebody make that motion?
I will make a motion.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Tonight's meeting will be a hybrid meeting. People may participate by Zoom, but if we have a failure of the Zoom system, the meeting will continue. We have a quorum of the commission here. Mike, we had minutes from February 1st and February 15th, correct?
Yep.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes from February 1st. Did I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Susan was the second. And the minutes from February 15th. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Joe's second. And first order of business is business item B1, 114 Old Colony Lane. Do you want to present that, Mike?
Yep. So, a tree service company was on site, it was last week, to cut a few tall hazard trees on the property boundary here, as outlined on 114 Old Colony Lane. There were 5 trees, all white pines. They were in poor condition, as I noticed on site. And the only resource area is land subject to coast storm flowage. There's no tree policy, so this is kind of what we're left with at the moment.
Okay. Any discussion among commissioners? I hear none. I'd like to make a motion to accept the de minimis activity of the tree cutting at 114 Old Colony Lane. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Joe is the second, Mike? Perfect. And the second business item is a fence at 94 Marginal Street. Want to talk about that one, Mike?
Yeah, are any of the Dorseys here? Hi, how are you? Would you like to speak about your project here?
Oh, well, we're getting to the end, and we just wanted to put a fence down the side of the property line where it's marked in purple there, between us and our neighbor, because we both have dogs, and there's a break down where it kind of bends a little bit. There's a break, and our dogs go in their yard, which is not nice, so I was hoping to put a fence there. Just a 4-foot, not a picket, but just like a flat top on it, but just a 4-foot fence.
Okay.
Make it like, so down to where the reeds start.
Okay. Your comments on that, Mike?
I know the commission in the past has issued the 6-inch gap on the bottom of the fencing. The fencing would only be between the properties here and would not be restricting the property to the resource area. 4 feet tall. Check with the building commissioner for all other flood needs regarding the fence.
Okay, and it's going to stop short of the resource area?
Yep. We can condition that as well.
Okay. And it's subject to building permits, correct?
Yep.
Any discussion on commissioners? I'd like to make a motion to permit the fence at 94 Marginal Street as a de minimis activity. If I get a second?
Second.
Second is Susan. All in favor?
Aye.
Could I ask just one question as we finish? We have to not level but put like a top coat of loom to, so that we can see, because it's been all trenched for gas and electrical and everything. Is there any special loom we have to use, or special seed we have to use for that area, because it's the marsh, the salt marsh zone?
Where are you talking about?
Really, between the 2 back houses and all the way up to the driveways, everything has been dug up between trucks and trenching and everything else, so we need to reseed it all. So it's just gonna be a top coat of loam put on it to kind of fill in the divots, and then we were gonna put grass seed, but is there any requirement on what sort of grass seed we need or anything, or?
Previously disturbed.
Yeah. Yeah, it's existing lawn area, right?
Yes,
No.
okay, all right, great, thank you.
Perfect.
Okay, moving into our hearings, we have a number of continuances. First one is 274 Foster Ave, SC 42-2958. They're requesting a continuance until June 21st, 2023. Make a motion. Have I got a second?
Second.
Second is Joe, all in favor?
Aye.
Second one is 17 Oregon Road, SC 42-2990. They're requesting a continuance till April 5th. I'd like to make a motion that we accept that continuance. Have I got a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Second is Ken. And the next one is 1184 Ferry Street. I make a motion, we continue SC 42-2987 until April 5th. Have I got a second?
Second.
Second, Joe. All in favor? Aye. The next one is 0 Ferry Street, SC 42-3020. Make a motion that we continue that until April 5th. So I get a second?
Second.
Second, Susan. All in favor?
Aye.
And the next one is 146 Dakota Street, SC 42-3024. Make a motion to continue that until April 5th. Have I got a second?
Second.
Second is Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
And the next continuance is 6 Trounce Island, SC 42-3026. They're requesting a continuance until April 5th. Have I got a second?
Second.
Second is Susan. All in favor?
Aye.
And the last continuance is 60 Foster Avenue, SC 42-30. And have we got a DEP number on that yet, Mike?
Yes, for 60 Foster,
Yeah.
that is 3015.
Oh, okay, 3015. Make a motion to continue that until April 5th. Have I got a second?
Second.
Second is Susan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And we move into the hearings. First one is 85 Hartford Road. This is an after-the-fact NOI. In compliance with the regulations, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, Wetlands Protection Act, and the Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection. Hearing is set, Marshfield Concom, Wednesday, March 15th. Joseph and Janice Mariano, 43 Edgewood Road, Southborough, Mass., for an after-the-fact permitting for an existing paver driveway and deck within land subject to coastal storm flowage at 85 Hartford Road. You're here to present that, Rick?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'm the hearing officer.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, so as stated, Chairman, the homeowners here constructed a deck and a paver driveway on the property. They didn't realize that they needed a permit for it, my understanding, but the structures are already in place. The deck, I've quantified them on the plan, the coverages that they have. The deck is 165 square feet. The driveway is a pervious paver driveway, but it is out there, it's 806 square feet. So they're in place, he's been working with the building department. They have been through the floodplain permit process, but essentially, yes, they're here tonight filing this after the fact notice of intent for that unpermitted work. And that's essentially what we have. The only resource area that we're in is the flood zone. There's no wetlands within 100 feet or any other that I was able to identify other than the AE9 zone that they're in. So yeah, so here we are seeking a
Okay.
after the fact permit.
Very good, thank you. Mike, your comments on this one?
Yep. Taxes, fees, butters have been met. The work is done up to code for the building commissioner, and the only thing that they were missing was the permit to start off and commission approval. So other than that, it looks like a decent project.
Okay, and I took a quick look by there, lots dead flat, no issues there. Did we verify their pervious pavers?
Yeah, I verified on site that there was adequate gap between the pavers, and there's no standing water on
Very good.
the actual driveway.
And thank you for verifying the requirements for butters and everything. I forgot that. Comments from other commissioners? I see none. I visited the site. As Rick described, it's pretty straightforward. Any comments from the public on this one? I hear none. I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing and issue special conditions. Anything outside of the ordinary, Mike?
Nope, just the standard special conditions.
Very good. Have I got a second?
Second.
Second is Susan. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I believe is in the hallway.
Next hearing is the new hearing, 2200 Ocean Street and 25 Main Street, Town of Marshfield. Compliance with regulations, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, Wetlands Protection Act, Code of Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection. Public hearing will be held by Marshfield Concom, March 15th. For the notice of intent for an ecological restoration project, Form 3A, filed by Michael Maresco, Town of Marshfield, 870 Lorraine Street, Marshfield. And the hearing officer is Susan.
So I can confirm that we do have a DEP number. The abutters have been appropriately notified. Taxes and fees are waived because it's a municipal project. Before we begin this hearing, I think this is a very important project to a lot of people, and I suspect there are a lot of people that may have questions or comments. And so in the interest of keeping things going, I want everybody that wants to speak to be able to, but I'm asking if you follow the rules of the way we participate with the public to keep things running efficiently and out of fairness to the other hearings that are coming later, to keep things going on a timely basis. If you have questions, direct them to me, and I will direct them to the appropriate people in the room, because there are several here that may be involved in answering your questions. And if you have comments, please, I ask that you keep them brief. Don't repeat comments that other people have made, and that would be very helpful to keep things moving. The process will be, I'm going to turn this over to the project manager, which is Bill Finn, consultant to the Conservation Commission. Then the presentation will be by the professionals that have been hired to present this hearing. At that point, commissioners will speak, and we ask not to be interrupted during that period, and then we will open it up to public comment one at a time. Okay? So with that, I'll introduce Bill Finn, the project manager.
Thank you, Susan. I'll be brief as well. To the commission, primarily, as you know, I sent you a memorandum of record on about a month ago on the 18th of February, which explained to you the process that we're about to go through tonight with this project. And included with that memorandum were the rules and regulations of the Commonwealth that regulate how ecological restoration projects are supposed to be processed through the system. We are those regulations are the ones that will govern us this evening, govern your activities this evening and your decisions. The 505 regulations that for the town of Marshfield, since I've discussed this with town council, since we do not have any specific regulations in the 505s that deal with ecological restorations, we need to follow the state regulations. The state regulations require that if this project is deemed an acceptable ecological restoration project, you must approve it. And the reason that that is set up that way is because in the beginning, when an applicant files an NOI for a ecological restoration project, they must provide a lot of information to you up front. And you've received this 300-page plus document, which contains the required type of information that the state requires in their regulations to be submitted as part of the NOI. And so they anticipate that all of the information that you need to make a rational decision is contained in the actual NOI submittal application. So, but in order to allay any concerns that the board or the commission may have or that the public may have, the consultants to us on this, who you will meet shortly, the consultants to us on this project have reviewed the 505s in light of the project and made the determination that this project does comply with all of the performance requirements in the 505s. And that information is also contained here in this NOI submittal. So even though we didn't have to, we did. And we do comply. So I think that information is important for you to know, and it was done to allay any concerns that we were trying to get away with something. The last thing I would like to say is that we have provided you with a draft order of conditions this evening. We did it electronically, and we've also given you a hard copy for your review and this evening. The issue becomes important in terms of where we go from here. This approval is necessary from the Conservation Commission. We need a order of conditions from this Conservation Commission to proceed with the rest of the permitting that's required for this project. We need 4 or 5 more permits, but in order to file those permit applications, we need an order of conditions from the Conservation Commission. And we are in the process of trying to submit a grant application for $2.5 million for construction of this project. And one of the considerations in their evaluation of our proposal will be, do we have all our permits? And that's going to be a very strict requirement. So we must make every effort we can to have in hand by the end of June all of our permits. So action by this commission is imperative in terms of the order of conditions, so we can get on with filing the rest of the permits that we require. So with that, I will turn it back to you, Commissioner Karen.
I'd like to introduce Leslie Fields from one of our consultants from Woods Hole Group, and Niels Weinberg from Fuson O'Neill. Did I say that right? Fuson O'Neill Engineering, and they'll be presenting the project. So I'll leave it to you.
I don't know. Do I have to speak into the microphone?
Probably for people that are on Zoom, it would be better
Yeah,
if you're,
okay,
yeah,
great.
you
Okay.
often can't hear on.
Okay, well,
We
thank
can hear you perfectly, just to let you know.
Oh, great, thank you.
you. So thank you for letting us present the project to you tonight. I want to start by introducing the town of Marshfield's leadership team. Of course, Bill Finn, the project manager for the Conservation Commission, and Rod Parcagino. I think it's Charlie here with the engineering to address some of the facilities that are of concern from a safety standpoint. And we've been working very closely with both of them to develop this project. And of course, we have state partners with the Division of Ecological Restoration, Division of Marine Fisheries. Both of those agencies have been consulting and assisting us on a technical level, as well as the North and South River Watershed Association, in community engagement, and then interfacing this project with some of the other restoration projects along the South River And of course, the Veterans Services of Marshfield have been integral project partners in helping us understand what the considerations should be into the design and what the concerns are. Operationally, maintenance, they are the caretakers of the park, as you know, and so we worked very closely with them as well to develop the design. So, okay, next slide, please. As I go through this, I'll talk about the project issues and goals. Leslie Fields, who is with Woods Hole Group and is assisting us on the permitting and compliance, will address some of the regulatory slides that I have here, as well as the ecological slides addressing impacts to wetlands and restoration. So for now, I'll just start off with the broad pictures of what are the issues and goals for the design that we've put together in the drawings and proposal application. So obviously the fish ladder as it stands now is very poorly performing. It's a first barrier for fish migrating up to spawning grounds within the river system. And so it's been known to be an issue for a long time. It's old. It only operates within a very limited band of flow conditions, which obviously impacts the resource. So what we propose to do is to remove the fish ladder and create a natural nature-like channel of weirs and pools that will enhance and enable migration to upstream spawning areas by those migratory species. The second issue that we identified is sedimentation in the lagoon basin. As you know, it's an aesthetic resource, it's a cultural resource of very great significance to the veterans in the community. They have a fountain that they have not been able to operate over the last several years, and so because the depth of the machine that spouts is not adequate. So what we propose to do is to remove that accumulated sediment, to increase those water depths. In the design that we've developed, we think operationally, by managing the water flows through the lagoon will greatly lessen the operation and maintenance burden for that sediment. So again, we're trying to create a natural condition for migration of that sediment into and out of lagoon. Of course, the water wheel is another very important cultural element for the veterans and the community. And so we wanted to assure that whatever we do doesn't impede the ability of that water wheel to turn under the water that flows through that sluice channel. And so the issues that affect that are leakage from the lagoon that obviously feeds the water wheel. And we also, during lower water conditions, we wanted to be able to provide a makeup water, if you will, that would enable the wheel to continue to turn if the level of the water is not such that it can crest over the flume into the channel to turn the water wheel. Limited access to the park in certain areas for Americans with disabilities, and so we want to do everything that we can to enhance and provide that access. And so one of the things that you'll see is a reshaping of one of the banks of the lagoon to provide bridges that will enable ADA access. The bridge that is out there now over the intake channel to the lagoon, as you'll see, is not ADA compliant. So again, we just want to do these things to make a safe and accessible park. And the stone masonry walls that line the downstream channel and the portions of the lagoon are in very poor condition. That's obviously one of the places where water leaks out from the lagoon. So what we want to do, obviously it's also a safety issue. If one of those walls collapses and somebody were to fall into that, then that's a concern. So in the thinking of mobilizing the financial and resources to do a project, we want to make it a whole and complete project to address all the safety concerns, all the aesthetic concerns, operation, maintenance, ecological, to the best that we can, and we feel that we hopefully have been able to do that. So with that, next slide please, and I think Leslie will speak about regulatory.
Musical chairs. All right, so as you heard at the beginning and from Bill, this is being proposed as an ecological restoration project. And so DEP enacted new regulations for ecological restoration projects, I'm going to say about 5 years ago. So it's probably pretty new to the commission. In fact, we've worked only on one other ecological restoration project together. We're getting into more of them, but you know, it's been a learning process for us, as I'm sure it will be for you guys. But one of the things that you have to prove before you can present your project as ecological is that you meet the definition within the regulations of an ecological restoration project. And that is essentially that you are restoring ecosystems to an area that have been anthropogenically altered. That's the basic definition in the wetlands regulations. So this project definitely does that because the dam was put there years ago with historic grist mill and has impacted the area and the ability of the fish to pass up the river. So I wanted to just go through for the commission and just describe how this project meets the requirements for an ecological restoration project. So those are presented in the regulations in 310 CMR 10.131A through L. There's quite a few of them. I've listed 3 here at the top. They're sort of the most important ones. The first one I just went over, that we are restoring fisheries and wildlife habitat to areas that were previously altered by man. The next one is that the project is avoiding and minimizing impacts to the extent that we can. And I want to spend a little bit of time on this. So the ways we are doing that, we are following to the extent we can the time of year restrictions that have been requested by the Division of Marine Fisheries. And we just got a letter today, the commission got a letter today from DMF that spells out these time of year restrictions. So they don't want any work in the river between February 1 and July 15, and then again from September 1 to November 15. But in order for us to work during the low flow conditions, we need to encroach on those time of year restrictions a little bit. So we want to work between July 1 and October 31 when the flow conditions are lower. So this letter that Mike has that was presented to the Conservation Commission from DMF just says that provided certain conditions are followed, they are okay with us or the town requesting an incursion into these time of year restrictions, and they feel like the fisheries interests will still be protected. So, you know, we have the toys and we are for the most part following them, and where we don't, DMF is going to be okay with that. Other things we're doing to avoid and minimize impacts: construction sequencing and water bypass provisions that will allow the water to flow during all parts of construction, and then erosion control, sedimentation control that will minimize sedimentation into the river. One of the other requirements is that the project can't have any impacts to interests of flood control and storm damage prevention. The project does not propose to alter the water levels in the river to the extent that it would alter the flood control and storm damage prevention of the banks on the sides. In addition to the general requirements for eligibility for ecological restoration, projects also have to meet specific requirements. So this project meets 2 specific types of ecological restoration project requirements, one for dam removal and one for restoration of fish passageways. And I've listed here all the requirements that we meet. So it has been designed in accordance with the DEP's dam removal guidance. It doesn't involve the removal of a dam that's managed for flood control. It was essentially put in there, the dam was for the historic grist mill, not for flood control. There will be no impacts to public or private water supply wells. We are proposing to remove both the full vertical and horizontal extent of the dam. We're required to get a written determination from DCR's Office of Dam Safety that the project is not within their jurisdiction. We got that letter, it's a part of the application. And then we're also required to show that we're restoring a fish passageway that was identified by DMF, which it was, and that we will be filing this fishway permit application. So I know that was kind of a long-winded way of describing it, but I think it's important sort of as a learning tool, but also just demonstrate that this is truly an ecological restoration project and it meets all of DEP's requirements for that, so that you can issue that restoration order of conditions.
Next slide, please. Okay, so just in terms of orientation, of course, everybody knows where the Veterans Memorial Park is here, but you can see it's on the South River, first barrier. Coming up, intersection of Main and Beach Street. So please, next slide. Okay, so this is an overview of the way that water flows through the park. Of course, everybody knows, but I want to just make sure that everybody understands, going from the top left image here of the upstream section of the river flowing down, there's a split, and the main channel of the river continues down towards the fish ladder and the dam spillway, of course, but there's an uncontrolled lagoon inlet channel where water may flow into this, I'll call it the left part of the lagoon, the half-heart-shaped lagoon. And then, of course, it can flow out of the lagoon in either of two ways, depending on water level and flashboard management by the veterans. It can either flow back into the channel through the bottom of the heart, quote, or it can flow out through an 18-inch reinforced concrete pipe outlet that has a flashboard stop log controlled at the inlet at the lagoon. Water flowing out of the lagoon and down the river channel approaching the spillway can go over the spillway. It can go through the fish ladder that exists currently on the left bank, or it can go through the flume for the water wheel. And of course, continuing down, everything merging from any of the 18-inch discharge under the Main Street Bridge. Next slide, please. Okay, so just another orientation here to show you, of course, the configuration of the fish ladder. You can see the fish ladder on the right-hand picture, right-hand side of the right-hand picture. That's the entrance. It's a very narrow, small, it's an old-fashioned fish ladder, and it doesn't work very well, as we noted. You can see the stone masonry spillway, the tiers of the falls through the spillway, and again at the left side, the timber water wheel with the flume in the back of the picture. Next slide, please. Again, just another perspective view. This one is taken by obviously during low water. This is a drought a few years ago, so you can see the composition of the spillway. You can see the void that's forming in the portion of the spillway, the stone masonry wall supporting the water wheel. That's an example of the type of deterioration that the project is intended to address, that and other defects and deterioration of the stone masonry wall. So, next slide, please. Again, just another view looking this way downstream towards the bridge. Same interface, same controls. There are flashboards that are currently installed at the spillway to manage water levels during the migration season. The town has been operating those flashboards and water controls that exist now in concert with an operation plan that was developed by the Department of Marine Fisheries. So the veterans are there to implement those controls seasonally and per flood conditions to enable and facilitate the operation to the extent that the fish ladder can pass fish. And one thing I will note is that we, of course, have developed an operation and maintenance plan together for the controls, if you will, that we have incorporated into our project. That will likewise be implemented by the park trustees, and then that has also been developed in concert with Brad Chase at DMF. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so now really just another perspective here visually to show the heart-shaped lagoon. You can see the 18-inch discharge conduit on the right-hand side, the position of the water wheel head race intake, spillway and fish ladder in the background, that lagoon inlet and the white bridge, again on the left-hand side of that picture. Okay, next slide, please. Okay.
All right, this slide just depicts the wetland resource areas. We essentially have 4 different wetland resource areas. So the areas that are, I guess they're shaded in gray, so it's land under water bodies and waterways. That's all parts of the river, and it's the heart-shaped lagoon. We've got bordering vegetated wetlands, so the areas hatched in yellow over here on the left side of the slide are wooded swamp type BVW. And then we have emergent marsh downstream of the dam over sort of right near where the river goes underneath Main Street, the bridge there, that little green hatched area. So that's also BVW emergent marsh. And then we have two types of bank. We've got a coastal bank and we've got an upland bank. And I'll describe that to you. So the coastal bank is that sort of large yellow area on the north side of the river that's downstream of the dam. And so that's a coastal bank because that area is influenced tidally during, very high tides, spring high tides and storms. And so that part of the system is considered coastal, and that's a coastal bank. The bank areas on either side of the river and on the north side of that little peninsula where the bridge sort of takes you to that island, those are inland bank areas. And there's a sort of a sliver of that inland bank that continues along the north side of the channel upstream of the dam. So those are the wetland resource areas we have. Nils is going to talk a little bit about, what we're proposing, and then we'll finish up with impacts to these resource areas and how we're going to restore them. Yes.
So basically what I believe you're showing is that almost the entire area is within some sort of a resource area.
Yes, that's absolutely true. We've also got, I guess we don't show on here, but we've got riverfront area, 200 feet from the mean high water. It's on the plan, yeah. And then land subject to coastal storm flowage. And we've got the buffer zone as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is a profile view. If you were standing at the Situate chair and looking towards the park, obviously the river coming in from the right and flowing down over the spillway, and then down through the fishway. And I haven't shown you a plan view of what the fishway looks like, but this is a cross-sectional representation. And the reason for showing this is that essentially we're going to have in the dark green at the bottom a series of nature-like boulder weirs and pools. And the way that we design that is to create the flow conditions that will support migration of the target species. Herring, alewife, and other fish upstream. And so those fish are able to swim at a certain velocity for a certain distance, and they require a minimum depth of water. So our design approach is to look at the seasonal range of flows during the upstream migration season. So from March through June, we look statistically at what the range of flows are. We determine what the low flow condition is, what the high flow condition, and then through the modeling analysis that we do, we determine the shape and the elevation and the position of these weirs and pools so that fish have a resting pool to stop and then migrate up through the next weir, and then they continue in a stepwise fashion, similar to the baffles and the fish ladder, but more efficient, obviously. So what we show here is really at the bottom you can see those vertical spines. This is an exaggerated scale, so it is exaggerated vertically and compressed horizontally, so that's why they look like that. But they're going to be stacked boulders. They're not going to be walls. They're going to be very nature-like, and the water will cascade over those weirs and pools during the migration season, all other times of the year. What I show in the highlight in the background is what you would see for the lagoon. And the reason that I show that is that controlled lagoon intake channel is going to stay where it is, and it's going to continue to feed water into that lagoon. And the reason that we need to do that is, number one, because the lagoon needs to be maintained, and we don't want to pump water into the lagoon to have it, be maintained. And we also want to assure that water that flows into the lagoon can flow through the water wheel at all the times of the year that are capable, except for obviously extreme droughts. So it's kind of two sides of the water management. The natural river is what we're doing with the weirs and pools, and what's in the background is what we propose to do with the lagoon and the discharge conduit. When I get into the sequence of construction, we're going to more or less draw a line halfway through our project, and we're going to do the work on one half of the project while the water flows through the river, and then we're going to flip-flop and we're going to put the water through the project, and then we're going to do the work in the river, and then we're going to remove all the diversions that are used during the construction to enable those two things to be done under a controlled and safe condition. The reason that we're increasing the size of the outlet conduit is to be able to convey the flow during that second half of the project. It's going up to a 30-inch diameter culvert. And so again, that's just one of the things that, we know that the culvert is down there. It's going to be an improvement. It's going to improve the safety of the park, but it also is going to improve and enable the safety of the work during construction. Okay, next slide. Okay, so here we are. Now, I probably should have showed you this one first, but anyway, you can see the weir and pool system, and what we have is, obviously a series of weirs and pools, boulders nested in there in a random-like fashion, a nature-like fashion, that again provide little places for the fish to stop behind a boulder and rest until it can move up during those higher velocity flow conditions. As the fish come up the channel underneath the bridge, we want to make sure that they are able to get to the first part of the fishway, which is why we created what we call a low flow entrance channel. And this is again just when we did the modeling, we saw that there wasn't an adequate depth of water. If we didn't do anything to the river channel downstream of our fishway, there wasn't an adequate depth of water during the low flow migration conditions. So what we do is we're just shaping that so that during those low flow conditions, the fish will have an adequate depth to be able to get to the entrance of the ladder. We also don't want the fish to get confused by water coming out of the water wheel. We want them to know that this is the way to go to the spawning grounds, and so by providing that low flow entrance channel, we'll be able to do that. So the other parts of the element here that we're doing is that you can see we're introducing a number of flow controls, and I'm going to try to use words to describe what I'm talking about. Otherwise, I would point to where it is, and I can stand if it would help. It wouldn't help the people at home.
Whatever.
Okay. And I don't want to block anybody behind me either, but I'm just going to point out this first inlet control, the gated lagoon intake channel. That's going to be established to regulate the water that comes into the water wheel, into the lagoon and into the water wheel during the migration season. So if there's low flows in the spring and the fish need the water in the river, that gate will be closed, and the primary imperative for the project is to assure that fish migration conditions are maintained. During normal conditions, that flashboard thank you will be maintained and the water will flow into the lagoon. And then again, down here at these two outlets, I'll say this one right here to the 30-inch will be controlled, and then the one up by this proposed bridge will also be controlled. And again, that's to regulate how water moves through the lagoon. So again, this is part of the sediment management strategy. We can force the water through that 30-inch to help the sediment to migrate in a natural way, just like it moves within the river. Now, as you go downstream underneath that bridge, thank you, and up to the right, that was what we call the water wheel head race channel, okay? So what we're doing here is we have two ways to regulate water that comes out of the head race channel. One goes directly into the river, straight away, and then one can turn right into the water wheel. So again, this is an adaptive control to allow the trustees to be able to manage flows through the park, manage the interests of assuring that fish passage is met, manage the interest of assuring that the lagoon's water levels are adequate for operation of the fountain, and assure that the water is able to get to the water wheel when the water moves through the lagoon. All of those things are, of course, addressed in the O&M plan. We have a Fishway O&M plan, and we also have an O&M plan that's developed for the whole park and all the facilities and improvements that we're doing. So I'm going to just talk about the peninsula and the reason that we have extended the peninsula. Number one is really to enable this water control to be developed. Obviously, that also provides greater access for people to get closer to the river and see the nature-like fishway, see the migration occurring when it happens in the spring. But we have two elements that we have proposed, which is highlighted in yellow. And this is a supplemental water wheel water supply system, if you will. So if there is not enough water in the river to come and maintain the lagoon, we need to keep it in the river. Essentially, we can adaptively close the intake and then shunt the water directly to the water wheel. And so what that would do is allow water to come in here, upstream of the fishway, and flow down through into, it would be like a concrete basin, and the water would come out of the pipe below the ground, and it would flow into the head race to the water wheel. And under this condition, we would isolate the lagoon and draw that water out and allow it to go to maintain the flow conditions needed to turn the water wheel. During Lower conditions, when we need to maintain water into the lagoon and the water in the river is lower, is not adequate to maintain the lagoon at the level that the trustees need it to be, we have introduced a supplemental water supply cistern and underdrain. And essentially, these are two perforated concrete, they're like manholes, but essentially the water can flow out of the ground into these cisterns. And we also have an infiltration trench, so any groundwater that's in here can also flow into those two cisterns, and then there will be a pump that will operate to be able to add supplemental water into the lagoon during those low water conditions. Obviously, if there's a drought, that happens now, and the lagoon can't operate the fountain, that would continue. But under those conditions, when there's enough water in the river for a natural flow and the functions and values of the river, but not enough for the lagoon, they have another source of water to be able to maintain the water at the levels that they want to have or need to have for the maintenance of the lagoon. So for that, they need obviously electricity. There's going to be a conduit that will be run from the control panel in the shed, which brings me to the last element, if you will, or one of the last elements, which is the electrical supply that feeds power to the park, operates the lights and everything that the trustees have. It's probably 60 years old, more. It's the original electrical service. It doesn't meet any code. It's frankly not safe. The panels, so we're going to, when we have all the mobilization of resources, we want to address this. This is a safety concern. We're going to go to the pole and we're going to bring in new conduits that meet current code, and we're going to have new panels installed, and everything will be the way it should be. I guess the last thing that I'll touch upon here is the lagoon. So what we're doing in the lagoon, obviously the sediment is accumulated, doesn't have adequate water depth. Water leaks out through the masonry on the sides, but it also leaks out the bottom. And so what we want to do is to restore or replenish, if you will, whatever liner is there now, placed however many years ago, clay liner. We're going to go in and we're going to put in a nice, good new clay liner, 12-inch clay liner. That's going to, again, be a water conservation measure. So we don't have to pump water out of this. We want to keep the water that we already have in the lagoon. We don't want to keep adding water that's just going to flow out the bottom or out the sides. So those are all the primary project elements. Next slide, please.
Before you leave, so,
Yeah.
So on the right, two pictures, one is the current situation.
Yeah.
As an overhead.
Yep.
And the lower picture is what the proposed.
Yeah, that's a rendering.
That's what I was fixated on. So
Yep.
that gives you a good sense of
Yeah.
what it's gonna look like after the fact, and where you can see the improvements
Yep.
in the land and the water flow, so.
Okay. Yep. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay, so this is another rendering that we've developed to show you what it looks like now and what it will look like when in the bottom right. You can see the peninsula gets extended. There's going to be natural vegetation on the banks. Those are going to be seasonally flooded banks. And then, of course, the boulders and riffles coming down through the channel, and then the water wheel maintaining its flow. The two bridges added, and of course you can see the fountain in the background. So, okay, so next slide, please. All right, so we broke out the project into different elements. Of course, we looked at a number of different alternatives to address the issues and the goals that are a part of the project. Of course, for the river restoration, the ecological benefits, we want to, of course, the do nothing doesn't serve any benefit. Removing the dam and a fish ladder with no fish passage improvements, essentially that would lower the whole profile of the river. It would drain the lagoon, and these, cultural resources would be lost. And so that was a non-starter from the get-go. Removing the dam and the fish ladder and constructing a roughened channel. So essentially this is a different type of a channel as opposed to a weir and a pool system. You could say, well, let's try to create a bouldery channel that can still allow fish to migrate upstream. But when we ran the modeling on that, we found that no matter what we did, we couldn't get the hydraulics to meet the fish, the capabilities for the fish that are swimming upstream could not be met unless we built this weir and pool system, while also meeting the concerns and needs of the veterans and the trustees. We spent significant modeling time to try to make that work. but it just would not work. And so, of course, if we're investing millions of dollars to do this project, we want to have confidence that it will work. And so we feel very confident that this system, which is, there are many systems like this, nature lake fishway channels throughout New England, and of course I could describe them to you or show you where you can go and see them. So that's the first project element and why we propose this this alternative 4. Okay, next slide, please. Lagoon water conservation alternatives. So what I've done here, and the shading is a little slight, but those are the elements that we've selected for inclusion in the project. So these are all things that enhance the ability to conserve the water. We looked at them, we said, what are the costs and what are the benefits, what are the impacts, and does it make sense to include them? First being dredging the lagoon. Of course we want to do that. That'll allow us to install a new liner. And when we get down to 5, we'll talk about that. When the lagoon is dredged, what do we do with the material? First thing we want to do is put it back wherever we can on the project. That's a beneficial reuse. It's low carbon. We don't have to haul it anywhere. We can incorporate it into the native substrates that we want to create in the river channel and on the banks of the river channel. So, of course, we have that, and then we also want to look at where it can be beneficially reused offsite. We've talked to the town and the DPW, and we understand that material would be able to be beneficially blended into the composting facility. So, of course, we've done a characterization of the sediment to assure that it would meet the criteria, which we have done, and so that would, of course, be part of the project in the proposal. We have, as I noted, replacing the existing and additional water control structures. All of those flumes and gates and stop log structures are all there to allow the trustees to adaptively manage the project beneficially under whatever climate conditions come up. We talked about the supplemental water supply cisterns to be able to maintain water levels in the lagoon. And of course, the conservation measures. We looked at 3 conservation measures for the lagoon to prevent or minimize the leakage of water through the bottom of the lagoon. We looked at a geomembrane, a plastic liner. We looked at a bentonite liner, which is a clay liner that you kind of roll out. And then we looked at, kind of a borrow site clay liner, 12-inch clay liner. And we chose that because, again, it provides the most natural benthic environment for the lagoon into the future. And of course, when we got into further discussions in the last part of the project with the town and the trustees, we determined that this water wheel flow bypass system was necessary in order to maintain the uses and values of the park and the site. Okay, next slide, please. When we talk about park access, safety, and aesthetic improvements, of course, doing nothing was dismissed. We want to do what we can to improve everything, which we did by extending the peninsula, constructing ADA accessible bridges and pathways through this new portion of the project site, repairing stone masonry walls that are in danger of collapsing, and replacing the outdated electrical system and installing a new primary service electrical conduit while all the construction equipment and resources are mobilized. Next slide, please. Okay. This is a couple slides to represent what we talk about, or what I mentioned earlier in terms of the phasing of the construction to be able to manage the water flows through the river and allow the work to be done in a safe and protective way for the environment. And essentially the first phase would entail installing or constructing a temporary access causeway with flow bypass conduits. Essentially, this will be like trap rock or stone that'll be placed across the river channel with these conduits that allow the flow through the flow of the river to go underneath or through this causeway. With the access coming from the Situate Chair Company. And so we have had numerous contacts with them to talk about getting access through their property during construction. They've been very, very helpful. We've heard their concerns. We've addressed their concerns in what is being proposed here. And so we would come from that side of the project site and then drive across this causeway, get to the lagoon and construct all the lagoon and the improvements. With these, these temporary cofferdams, and I don't call them out, but essentially these structures here would be a cofferdam system that would keep the water from flowing up into the areas where the work is occurring. We have provisional access from Main Street. Again, we want to provide as much redundancy in the access, so we have a very short time of year window. It's very important that the work occurs efficiently, and so we're trying to create these numerous ways for access coming in from the existing parking area, with, of course, protection for the ground, and then coming from the intersection at Main Street into another provisional staging area. All these areas would be restored, of course, to their pre-construction condition upon the completion of the work. So this phase of the project would install that 30-inch conduit from the lagoon to the bridge, and it would repair a section that's of the stone masonry wall that is leaning downstream of the water wheel, which is why we have that cofferdam in that portion of the project site. Obviously, if there's a flood, the water's going to go over all the systems that we have in place. We're going to pull out, and we're going to come back when the water recedes. So this is not intended to, protect the site under all conditions. It's simply to assure that the work can be done under normal seasonal conditions. And of course not affect the Situate chair. So on the next slide, we're going to flip the project over. Now everything has been done on the upstream side, and now we're building a cofferdam at the upstream end, putting the water through that flume for the intake to the water wheel, and we are then constructing the nature-like fishway within the river channel itself. We're removing the dam, removing the fish ladder that's out there now, and we're constructing the new river channel with the weirs and pools and the bank areas that will allow, again, migration of the target species. Okay, next slide.
All right, we are almost done. 2 more slides. So once we've done all the construction that Neil's just described, then we want to restore the habitat areas. So this slide shows those riparian habitat restoration areas. And we have 4 different areas. The first one is the upper riverbank restoration area. So that's the area that's shown sort of in light yellow all the way at the top on the northern side, up on the Situate Chair property. So each one of these 4 areas has a different sort of planting plan that's designed just for the elevations and the habitat that particular area will serve. So in that area, we've got red maple. It's all listed on sheet 11 of the plans. I'll just hit some of the highlights. So red maple, elm, black willow. We've got a number of shrubs, and then we've got a restoration seed mix in that area. The next area is the riverbank stabilization area, and that's shown in orange. It's on the north side of the river, kind of north of where the dam used to be at this point. So in that area, we've got specced out black willow, we've got silky dogwood, a wetland seed mix. As we move further up the bank, we've got swamp rose, conservation seed mix, and then another sort of a bunch of plants, winter holly, silky dogwood, highbush blueberry, and a conservation seed mix at the upper edge of that sort of slope or bank. The third area is the floodplain restoration area, so that is shown as the green areas on this slide here. And when Neil showed that rendition of the site earlier, you saw some of these areas sort of in that 3D rendering. And so in that area, we've got goldenrod, Joe Pye weed, swamp aster, tall meadow rue. We've got a restoration wetland seed mix in that area. And then finally, the area that's shown in black, the lower riverbank stabilization area on the north side of the river, that's going to be planted with black willow and a wetland seed mix in that area. So this is the plan for restoring the site once we're done with it. And then if you could show the last slide, please. So this just sort of summarizes the impacts that we're having to all the resource areas. And it's probably easiest to maybe focus on the table. What we have on the table is all the different wetland resource areas. We show the temporary area of temporary impact, area of permanent impact, how big that resource area is right now on the site, what the post-construction resource area will be for that type, and then what the change is. So I'll walk you through these. So for the land under water bodies and waterways, we are having a loss of about 2,032 square feet of this resource area. That is almost entirely because of the extension of that peninsula. So that peninsula is being extended into areas that are currently land under water bodies and waterways. So that's why we're losing that square footage there. Bordering vegetated wetlands, woody swamp, we've got 182 square feet of new BVW woody swamp. And so that's in some of those areas on the north side of the river where we're restoring some of those riparian habitats. We don't have any change in emergent marsh, so that little green area right across from where the river goes underneath the Main Street Bridge, that's staying as is, no change there. As far as bank, the upland bank, we are having an increase of 52 linear feet of that bank. And that is essentially because of the extension of the peninsula. So that's the south side of the river, the edge of that peninsula as we're extending it, that's an extension of that upland bank area. And then coastal bank, we also have an extension of about 102 linear feet of coastal bank. So that's the area that's shown in yellow on the north side of the river near where the dam used to be at this point. And the reason that we're having more coastal bank is that when we remove the dam and put in this ripple pool sequence, that sort of boundary between the coastal system and the upland system is going to move upstream just a little bit. And so that coastal bank will then be a little bit longer once we've built the project. And then the last three resource areas, riverfront, land subject to coastal storm flowage, and the 100-foot buffer zone, those are all increased, and it's primarily because, again, of the peninsula. So when we add that peninsula in there, we've got more land subject to coastal storm flowage, for example, because right now that area is wet. It's land under water bodies, but now it's not going to be, so it's land subject to coastal storm flowage. So that accounts for the increase in those resource areas, riverfront, land subject to coastal storm flowage, and a 100-foot buffer. And Mike, I think that's the last slide. Do you agree? Yes,
Yep.
okay. All right,
Thank you.
so open it up to questions from the commission.
Great. To add anything further?
Oh, I'd like to hear what
Okay,
the
great.
commissioners have to
So,
say.
commissioner comments, questions? All yours.
I have a question. I have two questions. One, for the sediment that we're going to reuse in the lagoon and the riverbank, and some of the soil you said might possibly go to the DPW for a composting facility. Is there a possibility that maybe the board or we could discuss that, you know, none of that ends up into the gardens anywhere in town, and that it's strictly used maybe more for the lagoon and riverbank? I'm not sure if that needs to. I know it meets, you know, the criteria, and there's no harmful, you know, but I think that we might be able to do that.
Okay, thank you. So what, if you look at the profile vertically of the sediment that we're going to be digging out, it's going to go from organic, it's a depositional type of sediment at the top, and you're going to get into the geologic formations down below. And you're going to be into more of a coarser sand. We have done some test pits out there, and we've done drilling out there, and so of course that's what you're going to find. You're going to find sand and gravel, anything more than 2 feet below the ground surface, if you will. What we propose to do is to take the organic constituents, the organic sediment, that's the material that we want to incorporate and put back into the river system. It's obviously native, and we want to make it as nature-like as we can. All of the mineral fractions, the geologic fractions, the sands and gravels are what we would send to, that would be obviously less, I don't know how they could have been impacted environmentally, but again, the blending ratio would be determined by the DPW based upon the composting, if that helps address your concern. Question?
Sure.
I think we could, oh, I'm sorry.
No,
Can I
that's
just
okay.
add
Go
something?
ahead.
I think we
Yes.
could easily accept a condition from the commission that says that, you know, it wouldn't be used in other places, in other gardens in town, as you were saying. I think that would be,
Reasonable.
yeah, I do, yeah.
Thank you.
Can I ask, Ken, is your concern that it go into that compost pile and then people take it away?
Yeah, I know a
Yeah,
lot of
I
people,
understand.
we have the composting in town, and a lot of people use that, and I don't think looking at the parameters, it looks good, but it's obviously something that I would assume that we could probably avoid entirely.
Makes sense. Anybody else? Any other commissioner questions? Comments?
What prevents fish from getting into the inlet to the lagoon? Is there a grating or a screen there?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. So, yeah, so right now, the only ways that fish can get into the lagoon would be to go up through the existing 18-inch conduit that discharges right by the bridge. Obviously, it's a small orifice, high velocities, no way fish could get up through that. The only other way would be, again, not physically possible through the water wheel flume intake channel and somehow getting up there. So, were you asked, yeah, does that answer?
No, what about the inlet to the lagoon? I'm not sure exactly what you call that. The lagoon intake
Intake channel.
Oh, yeah, okay, so in other words, once the fish move up through the fishway,
Right,
there
what
at
keeps
that
them
point,
from
what keeps them from going
recycling
back
back
down.
through there?
Right, yeah, so we have screens, essentially, DMF, they fabricate screens, so we're gonna have a screen to prevent fish from getting into the supplemental water wheel flow bypass system, and we would have a similar screen for that intake as well.
And then the various controls that you need to use, for the actual river passage itself, that's totally uncontrolled.
That's correct.
After.
That's correct, free flow.
Okay, and then as far as everything else, how many different levels, how much of an operation is this gonna be? Is this gonna take every time there's a major weather occurrence? Is it?
I wouldn't expect that. I think there's going to be a certain amount of learning when the project is done. We're going to have a template for management, and then it's going to be refined based upon what the observations are to address concerns or needs. And so I would expect that it would still be seasonally, just like it is now. There are just more points of control that enhance the ability to manage the system.
But that's all for the lagoon and the water wheel. As far as the fish passage and the river, that will just be totally natural.
Yes, yes.
Very good.
I have one more question. So I understand that this is, a federal FEMA grant for the ecological restoration. If we approve this with conditions today in order for it to meet the next stages to get approved, will this only be good for the FEMA grant money, or if this needs to be allocated funding in a different, if it doesn't pass the other stages, will it have to come back here for other conditions?
Would you like to take it?
This isn't, the grant that we're applying for is not FEMA grant money.
Okay.
It's the Municipal Vulnerability Program grant. And in terms of, if number one, if we get the grant money, we have a 25% town match to that money. If we can get part of that money. It's a possibility they'll only give us half of the money that we're asking for. We're asking for 2.5 million. They could give us nothing, or they could give us half, or they could give us whatever they decide they're going to give us.
Right.
And then if we don't get anything, we could apply again next year.
Correct.
We're eligible again next year. But it's, so all of those options are available for that particular grant source. But we are pursuing other grant sources as well. We're not going to put all of our apples in one barrel. So right now, we got to get this done. And we have to get this permit, and we have to get the rest of our permits. And that'll be a requirement for any grant money that we apply for. They're going to want to see the permits. So we might get it from a number of different sources. And we might get some from we will have to get some from the town as well.
Right. Sure that answer.
Joe, any
One
questions?
last question. The areas that you're modifying, they're not being turned into non-resource areas, if my math was right. They're all being converted to some sort of a resource area. So you've got the negative 2,000, and the rest of it seems to approximate the 2,000. So it's not going, no substantive amount is really going to upland.
That's correct, yes, yeah.
Joanne, did you have any questions or concerns?
I think that was good. Very good presentation. Very thorough.
since now we're willing to take up public questions or comments from anyone on Zoom or in the room, and I just ask that you just raise your hand to speak and identify yourself. Any questions, concerns, comments?
I've got one question. I'm Bill Early. During the project, is there any point in time that you have to temporarily curtail the water flow going into the park?
Go ahead, yes,
Okay.
yes, yeah, you can go right ahead.
Thank you. The water will flow through the park unrestricted throughout portions of the project. Like I said in the water control slides, we're going to move it through one portion of the site, the existing river, for the first phase, and then we're going to flip-flop and have the water flow through the park and lagoon in the second phase, but it will not be stopped at any point.
Anybody else? Is there anyone on Zoom that would like to make a comment or has a question? Samantha?
Not on Zoom.
Yes, you're right here. I didn't see you. You can still talk.
Samantha Woods, Executive Director for the North and South Rivers Watershed. As you saw already, we've been involved in the project since the beginning and have been part of the, several years worth of discussions with the engineers, with the veterans, with the community about how we can balance the interests here with the need to restore as much as possible the ecological function in the river. And we think that this represents a really great improvement over what we see today, particularly for the fish. And I'm not sure if somebody asked this question, but the reason that the fish ladder now doesn't work is because they have to take like this really hard right turn. And it's really not what fish do. They look for flows. And so we see a lot of fish just beneath the spillway right now. When we have fish, we see them right there, kind of all piled up, and they just don't really understand that they're supposed to go up this fish ladder. They don't read the signs. So we think that this will be much improved because there won't be options for them. There'll be one option to go up, and it'll be much more natural. As you can see, there's a lot of modifications here that are being made, a lot of engineering considerations to make sure that the project works as designed. And so, one of the things that we want to make sure is that the long-term operation and maintenance of this is something that the town is really considering, how and who, and whether there's funding to support that in the long run, and how we can better make sure that isn't something that goes away. Once we're out of this room and the construction ends, we want to make sure that the design as is gets all the care and feeding that it'll need to make sure that both of these interests work. So, in some communities, there's a herring warden. That might be something that we can revisit in our community here. I know that Jay, when he was the conservation agent, was designated as the herring warden. That might be something that we can do again. So, things to consider.
Susan?
Yes.
You might want to read number C of the special conditions that may address to some extent Samantha's.
I was actually about to tell her that that's there. We'll be reading all the special conditions.
Okay.
So
All right, well, I thought you might want to read that one. just
actually,
to-
yeah, we can respond to you. We've made adjustments since we had talked before about that. And I will get to it. And where? Let's see.
I can read it if you'd
No,
like.
no, I can read it. I'm just going through this quickly. Which page? Bill?
Page 21 of 24, second from the bottom.
Page 20. So here's the condition that's been added, special condition. The town of Marshfield is responsible through its conservation administrator or his or her designee for maintaining and repairing the fishway, maintaining and repairing the fishway in good condition so that it will support safe and efficient fish passage in accordance with an operation and maintenance plan approved by the Division of Marine Fisheries. This requirement is a continuing condition that will be set forth in the certificate of compliance.
So in lieu of a fish warden, we have designated the conservation administrator or his or her designee. that person will be given whatever that person needs.
We will all make sure of it.
We will.
Congratulations, Mike.
Thank you.
You just did a good job. So no further questions? Oh,
I'd just like to make a statement.
Sure. Could
My
you
name is
stand?
Ed Tillman. I'm co-chairman of the trustees for the park, and this is the chairman, Ed Sullivan. I'd just like to make a statement for all concerned that we have been kept abreast of every aspect of this project, in that it is our job to keep the integrity of the park. And I would like to thank the town and everyone else concerned about how they have kept us abreast of everything that's going on and have asked us for suggestions and improvements. So, just a statement.
that's great to hear. Anyone else?
I'd like to add
Yes,
that the
Rod.
DPW Engineering Department has been involved as well and worked well with Nils and his team, and did a pretty good job, and it's a challenge. But thank you.
The project does reflect a lot of years of effort from a lot of people in this room, so it shows. So with that, I think we're ready to close the hearing and issue the special conditions and general conditions for this ecological restoration notice of intent. They're long, but we should probably read them. So I will make a motion to close and read those conditions. Could I have a second?
Second.
And then we'll vote after we. Okay.
The conditions will be as follows. General conditions. A, failure to comply with all conditions stated herein and with all related statutes and other regulatory measures shall be deemed cause to revoke or modify this restoration order of conditions. B, the restoration order of conditions does not grant any property rights or exclusive privileges. It does not authorize any injury to private property or invasion of private rights. C, the town of Marshfield will comply with, including but not limited to, all applicable federal, state, or local statutes, ordinances, bylaws, or regulations. D, work authorized under this restoration order of conditions shall be completed within 3 years from the date of issuance of this general order unless the general order is extended in accordance with 310 CMR 10.056D or operation of law. E, the restoration order of conditions may be extended by the Marshfield Conservation Commission for one or more periods of up to 3 years upon application to the commission at least 30 days prior to the expiration of this restoration order. F, any fill used in connection with this project shall be clean fill. No fill shall contain trash, refuse, rubbish, debris, including but not limited to lumber, bricks, plaster, wire, lathe, paper, cardboard, pipe, trees, ashes, refrigerators, motor vehicles, or parts of the foregoing. G, this restoration order of conditions is not final until all administrative appeal periods from this restoration order have elapsed, or if such an appeal has been taken, until all proceedings before the department have been completed. H, no work shall be undertaken until the restoration order of conditions has become final and has been recorded in the registry of deeds or land court for the district in which the land is located within the chain of title to the affected property. In the case of recorded land, the final restoration order of conditions shall also be noted in the registry's grantor index under the names of the owners of the land upon which the proposed work is done. The recording information shall be submitted to the Marshfield Conservation Commission prior to commencement of work. I, a sign that is not less than 2 square feet or more than 3 square feet shall be displayed at the site. The sign shall bear the words Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection and include the file number. J, where the department is requested to issue a superseding order, the Conservation Commission shall be a party to all agency proceedings and hearings before the department. K, upon completion of the work described herein, the town of Marshfield or its representative shall submit a request for a certificate of compliance to the Conservation Commission. L, the work shall conform to the plans and special conditions referenced in this restoration order of conditions, including any easements and planned engineering design plans. Any change to the plans approved in this restoration order of conditions shall require the town of Marshfield or its representative to inquire of its Conservation Commission in writing whether the change is significant enough to require the filing of a new notice of intent. And representatives of the Conservation Commission and Department of Environmental Protection shall have the right to enter and inspect the area subject to this restoration order of conditions at reasonable hours to evaluate compliance within the conditions set forth in this restoration order of conditions, and may require the submittal of any data deemed necessary to the Conservation Commission or the department for that evaluation. Oh. This restoration order of conditions shall apply to any successor in interest or successor in control of the property subject to this restoration order of conditions, and to any contractor or other person performing work conditioned by this order. P. Prior to the start of work, the boundary of the adjacent wetland in the vicinity of the proposed work area shall be marked by wooden stakes or flagging. In one place, the wetland boundary markers shall be maintained under a certificate of compliance has been issued by the Conservation Commission. Q. All sedimentation barriers shall be maintained in good repair until all disturbed areas have been fully stabilized with vegetation or other means. During construction, the town of Marshfield or its representatives or his or her designee shall inspect the erosion controls on a daily basis, shall remove accumulated sediments as needed. The town of Marshfield or its representative shall immediately control any erosion problems that occur at the site and shall notify the Conservation Commission. The Conservation Commission reserves the right to require any additional erosion and/or damage prevention controls it deems necessary. Sedimentation barriers shall serve as the limit of work unless another form of work line has been approved by this order. R. The project shall be conducted in accordance with any preliminary written determination obtained by Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program as set forth in 310 CMR 1011-2, and any time of the year TOI restrictions or other conditions recommended in writing by the Division of Marine Fisheries and the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife as set forth in 310 CMR 1011-3 through 5. S. The town of Marshfield or its representative shall implement the plan submitted with the notice of intent as provided by the Marshfield Conservation Commission to prevent and control invasive species. T. Since the project involves the dredging of 100 cubic yards or more in a resource area and dredging in an outstanding resource water, the dredging and dredge materials management shall be performed in accordance with all the provisions issued in 401 Water Quality Certification, which is hereby incorporated by reference into the order of conditions. U. The town of Marshfield shall operate and maintain the project infrastructure in accordance with the operation and maintenance plan submitted with the notice of intent as approved by the Conservation Commission. Implementation of the operation and maintenance plan as approved by the Conservation Commission shall be a continuing condition that shall be set forth in the certificate of compliance. Now on to special conditions. A. An as-built plan and written statement from a registered professional engineer and environmental professional expert in ecological restoration certifying substantial compliance with the design plan and construction specifications approved in the restoration order of conditions shall be submitted to the issuing authority within 90 days of completion of the dam removal. B. The town of Marshfield or its representative shall monitor the dam removal site during the first 2 years following completion of the dam removal. Said monitoring shall include topographical survey of the longitudinal profile and stream cross sections from downstream of the former dam through the upstream end of the former impoundment. The survey reference point shall comprise a permanent marker or recoverable survey point which with known coordinates such as a fixed point on an as-built plan, an existing benchmark, or a new benchmark. The markers should be identified or referenced in the plans and on the as-built plans. The town of Marshfield or its representative shall establish at least 2 photo points for pre and post restoration monitoring at the dam removal site. At least 1 photo point location shall be chosen to document the view of the pre-restoration and to document the same site after the dam is removed. A second location shall be chosen to document the view of the impoundment pre and post restoration. Photos shall be taken 2 years after the dam removal is complete. C. The town of Marshfield is responsible through its conservation administrator and his or her designee for maintaining and repairing the fishway in good condition so it will support safe and efficient fish passage in accordance with an operation and maintenance plan approved by the Division of Marine Fisheries. This requirement is a continuing condition that shall be set forth in the Certificate of Compliance. D. A post-construction project summary using surveys and narrative photographs as needed that confirm the fishway slope entrance and exit elevation shall be submitted to and approved by the Division of Marine Fisheries prior to the submittal for a request for Certificate of Compliance. E. Maintenance and control of invasive species at the site is to be done in a cooperative effort between the Marshfield Trustees of Veteran Memorial Parks and the Marshfield Conservation Commission. F. The town of Marshfield will retain the services of an archaeological professional to conduct monitoring and reconnaissance visual surveys of dewatered portions of the lagoon and river channel during the dam removal under a Board of Underwater Archaeological Resources Special Use Permit 312 CMR 2.06 G. Only native planting shall be used in any planting plans associated with the riverine section of the project only. H. This is the last one. The ecological restoration project shall be conducted in accordance with all applicable conditions and provisions contained in the Notice of Intent SE 42-3031 as approved by the Marshfield Conservation Commission on today, assuming that it's passed. March 15th, 2023.
Oh,
Thank you.
Nicely done, Mike.
Take a
I
break.
forget who seconded after all that. Who seconded it?
I
You
did.
Okay, thank you, Bert. With that, all in favor?
One comment,
Oh, I'm sorry.
condition E.
Yep.
You made some modifications to that, but should that be have the same phrase about the continuing condition? Make it a continuing condition? Control of the invasive species?
Yeah, that. Let me just reference.
You can just add that same sentence that you used in C.
Yes, under special conditions.
It's a requirement. Is that what you're
This
asking for?
requirement is a continuing condition that shall be set forth
Certainly.
in the Certificate of Compliance.
Certainly,
Yeah.
Yeah.
certainly.
For which special condition was that for, Bert?
C, E,
Yeah.
number E.
Okay, perfect.
And there's one other minor thing. In special condition A, it talks about the issuing authority in the last sentence. It should be not the issuing authority, but it should be the town of Marshfield. That's in special condition A, last line. Substitute town of Marshfield for issuing authority.
I have a question, to address Ken's concern about the dredge materials not being added to town compost. Can we add that in, T? Condition T about the, page 21, second bullet. Since the project involves dredging, would that be a good place to put that in?
Maybe under the special conditions.
The special-
perhaps?
It is in the special conditions. Number T.
Oh, that's under.
You could get a T as well.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
it's in the
You're
general.
right.
Or could we add a special condition for that, perhaps?
Yeah.
It should be in a special
Like,
condition.
It would be cleaner, I think, to add it as a special,
Yeah.
so we can add that language and
Yeah, what specific language were you?
what I was saying is, the remaining unused dredge materials from construction at the project that will be sent to the transfer station not be added to the compost for public use. It's probably a better way to say that, but that's the general idea.
Thank you.
And I don't think there was anything else.
One other item, quickly, again, it's just a typo type thing. Under the general conditions, which we can't change, we need to put in on page 20, under J, with the department, and we need to add the words of environmental protection. That just got left out.
Okay, all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Concludes your hearing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The next hearing is a new hearing, 176 Bay Avenue. In compliance with regulation, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, Wetlands Protection Act, and the Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection. Public hearing will be held by Marshfield Concom, March 15th, to consider an amended order of conditions filed by William Tallis, 176 Bay Ave, for after-the-fact permitting of a patio area with a fire pit and a proposed fence and gazebo within the Barrier Beach coastal dune and land subject to storm flowage. I am the hearing officer. Mike, can you confirm abutters,
Yes,
taxes, and
fees,
DEP
abutters.
number?
Yep, and DEP number.
Okay, it's existing DEP number, correct? Or-
Yeah, this is to amend an existing DEP number SE 422779.
Okay, Rick.
Hi, yeah, Rick Savant, Rebecca Taylor. I prepared this plan, working with the homeowner, Mr. Tallis. First and foremost, I'd say we're proposing to amend, we have an existing order of conditions done by, I'm just entering the project now, it was done by another engineer earlier for the construction of the house and so forth, was the initial file. We're amending the order to include this paver patio that was put in behind the deck. There was a fire pit on top of this paver patio that's out there. I understand it's pervious. Quantified that area with that 568 square feet. It wasn't, I guess, part of the original permit for the construction of the home. So that has been put in place. And that's the area. As part of amending this, Mr. Tallis thought, while we're at this, he wanted to propose this gazebo out to enjoy the beach views and so forth, and a section of fence out by the edge of Burke's Beach out there, kind of supplement an existing fence that's already out there. The gazebo, as you can see, is positioned on the lot in that fashion. It's a 10-foot diameter gazebo. It's going to be set on diamond piers, as you can see on the plan. The section of fence is also in red. It's a proposed vinyl fence that runs along the northerly boundary line opposite the gazebo, and then runs southeasterly towards the beach and then cuts across. The purpose of that is to kind of dual purpose to protect the dune and also keep people from coming up from the beach and going onto the property, which seems to happen quite a bit in the summertime. People walk through there and do different types of things. So that's essentially what we're hoping to do, amend the existing order to include that paver patio, and the applicant is hoping to be able to put this gazebo in there. So you've got the resource areas outlined on the plan and all the coverages on there. And we're both here to answer any questions you might have with this.
Okay, thank you, Rick. Your comments, Mike?
Yep, so, this is located in a Merritt Beach coastal dune type environment. This was originally the site plan that was approved. This is from original permit there, I believe it says 2018, 2016. But, here's some site photos from the actual area. From my understanding, this is the approximate location of the proposed gazebo. The snow fencing would be in front, towards this would be the beach out here, my back towards the home. So this would be the approximate area for the gazebo.
Yeah, leave that stake there, Mike. Come down to that photo.
Yep.
Scroll down once again. That the stake there with the flag on it to the left. That's the stake that was placed for the gazebo position.
That's actually the boundary.
Oh, forgive me.
That's the boundary.
Okay, yeah, it's
It
actually
would
over
be
to the right.
behind, there's some lobster traps that I think that might have washed up during Hurricane Bob in 1992. But it would be set back beyond that at a higher elevation. Yeah, boat, right.
And this is the patio in question for the after the fact.
Okay, Mike, could you go back to the original approved drawing?
Yep.
Okay, can you enlarge it there?
Yes.
So this approval was for the patio we just saw? Or
No,
for-
no,
house
no,
with-
that was, this was for the raise and,
Okay, so
raise and
everything,
replace the house.
including the patio?
Yeah, I've forgotten, was it a complete new house or did you
wasn't.
raise?
Yes, what happened was, I bought the property in 1984. In January of 2018, in January, we had a very cold snap. I was staying with my late wife at Brigham and Women's Hospital. All the pipes burst on the second floor. So after she passed away, I moved the house, basically built it on the same footprint of the house from 1984. My understanding from the builder was that it would include patio. The construction project was horribly protracted, and in the end, subcontractors weren't paid. And I installed that, not realizing that that was not part of the original plan, the patio area, and that was in July of 2021. So that gives you kind of 3+ years of protracted construction that occurred. I did come into the board, and I met with this board on June 1st last year. I had spoken at length with Mr. Graft. In fact, he had asked me about permeability, and very unscientifically, I took a hose and I hosed down the patio area and videotaped that, plus the water all seeping through, so that he was satisfied that that was, the permeable was not going to damage the environment in any way.
Yeah, and actually, your front yard, your driveway area is the same material,
It
right?
was the same, yes, it was the same contractor subsequent to the builder that did the patio and the driveway simultaneously. He started in July, he finished in September of 2021.
Mike, were you in on that discussion? Are you satisfied that's pervious?
I'm satisfied that's pervious. I recall Bill elaborating in depth about that property.
Okay, the other thing I see here is, there are a couple conservation posts called out.
Yep. Those are not.
Those are not in place. And I look back at the minutes from last June when you were in. I thought that was discussion about cutting those trees on the left there.
Yes, well, I can explain that again.
Yeah, because I think we've got several new members since then, so.
Sure, let me bring everybody up to speed. And I can show you some pictures. Actually, I planted those trees in 1984 when I bought the property. That's me thinner with no gray here,
Yeah.
watering the trees. And in the background, you can see that there was a shed, that was just a parking lot for beach parking for the adjacent property. And I planted the trees because it was a parking lot. There was a lot of
Yeah.
activity at that time.
Some of us remember that.
My neighbor directly next to me has serious medical problems. She cannot ambulate stairs, and I didn't remove, excuse me. What I did was I trimmed the trees back to the existing fence line so that she could see the ocean, the 180. Her ocean view directly out has been obstructed by a cargo container that was placed in front of her property by an adjacent owner 6 years prior. And this poor woman, she's got a stair lift up and down. And she bought her home in 1990.
Yeah.
She's got multiple sclerosis. I trimmed the trees, and I trimmed them in March.
Yeah, so actually, I think that's all we need on this. You can see the trees are cut, but they're not.
And they're still alive.
Yeah,
everyone.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then, final thing about the old plan is there was Mike, if you can scroll down just a little bit, there was, no, other way. That proposed planting, I've forgotten, I think I'm the only one on the commission from the time that you were in here for the original plan, but I don't recall, was that restoration plantings, or what was that?
I honestly don't know what the builder did, but Bill Grafton did say, would you be willing to do plantings? And since I fashion myself as somewhat of a farmer, and I've got some beach plums out there, and I certainly would do whatever plantings that would be even suggested to me, because it is a beautiful area, and I do love it. Right now, I grow my tomatoes in pots.
I believe we had him do those restoration plans.
Oh, okay, you were in on that, Joe? So I think I myself am satisfied with the tree issue. Rick, if you went to your plan, where is the patio in relation to those conservation posts?
If we could look at that, Mike.
That's fine. That data
I don't
forgetting
believe it's
those.
beyond them, Bert, but I think they'd be very close. They're
Yeah.
not in place.
Yeah.
I'd have to do a little scaling and to verify that, but they'd be close to the edge of that, just looking at it. I'd have to do some actual survey measurements to say for sure, but close. Where those are located on the property line, or if we could go back to that real quick, Mike, the
Yep.
original plan. And I do know that the house, as proposed, is in about the same position
Yeah.
as that. So, yeah, that one on the left there, on the left side, that would probably be within the limits of the marker, I would say, part of the patio, very close. Maybe both of them. So, yeah.
Okay, so it's either beyond those or very close to it.
Yes.
I think the bigger issue is the gazebo. The fact that we called out conservation markers, when the work was done before, that would be a no-touch area. So, you know, particularly when you see storm damage right in the area where the gazebo is proposed, I would not support the gazebo.
I could perhaps explain to you that the gazebo itself is retained further back than if you went looking at the ocean from where you're looking. You have a seawall, and it's retained further in from the seawall, further in from a non-permeable fence that was placed by a neighbor, and further in from her gazebo and tile. So it's really very much pulled in beyond that particular line, including the construction line of the new home, 4 houses down from me, which is being built about 40 feet beyond the line of homes along Bay Avenue. So it's pretty much restrained. And also, one of the things that I did want with the selection of the gazebo is it's octagonal. It's only 10 feet. So it's a small gazebo too. I know in the history of the property there, I've never had water in the area where I want it. And that, I'm going back almost 40 years, 39 years of ownership. I've never had water in that area. In fact, my home, which has a higher elevation, it had an unfinished basement, never had water in the basement. Actually, my neighbor across the street, who's here tonight, has had water in his basement from the marsh, but actually where my home is, it's a much higher elevation. And where the gazebo, if you would allow me, is at a higher elevation too.
Could we go back to the new plan, Mike?
Yep.
You spoke of a seawall. I actually took a visit out there Monday. You weren't home, I'm sorry, but I took a walk out. I'm trying to think of where the seawall was. I didn't see it.
Perhaps I can show you from, this is an aerial photograph from 1990, and this was when...
So it's not on this property?
No. No, I have no seawall, if I may approach. This is an aerial photograph in 1990. I had owned my property about 6 years. The home at 176 Beach was still under construction. Subsequent to that, rocks were put in and a fence was put in there. My original house, that is that house, and the gazebo area would be here, which is in that green area that is there. Essentially, since 1990, there hasn't been really any retracing of the sea, despite the fact that we seem to have higher high tides and lower low tides, but higher high tides. The seawall, which is further down.
Oh, okay. Well,
here.
that helps me because I just didn't see a seawall on your property.
No. It's 4 houses down. 1, 2, 3. The seawall ends at the 4th house. These 2 houses, this is where the new construction is. And the house adjacent to that is a yellow house that was newly constructed as well. This photograph shows the construction of the new house, which of course the yard wasn't completed, as well as the addition of a second story to the 4 units of apartments. And where I planted trees, as you can see if you look, the trees are growing in 1990. They weren't as high as they were, but the fencing and the cargo container, which obstructs the home, which is there now. That woman lived there. She bought her home in 1990. It's my neighbor.
Yeah, I think we understand the situation. I'd like to open it up to the other commissioners.
So what's the elevation on the gazebo? How high above the ground? How is?
It would be put in with.
Yeah, it's on diamond piers.
Diamond piers.
We don't have topography out in that area to give you.
So it's going to be at the
in
ground.
relation to the flood. Yeah, it's
Be at ground level.
4 or so above the ground on the diamond piers. So it's elevated above the ground surface, but I couldn't give you a number above mean sea level if that's what you're asking.
think in Barrier Beach, coastal dune building requirements are 2 feet above the adjacent grade. So
Okay.
2 feet above adjacent grade.
All right, so it's not at grade, that's a,
Yeah.
so it's above grade.
Yeah.
Good question. Have you got a floodplain permit for this, or been to the building commissioner about this?
I filed building, when I was here last June, I was told I had to go to both conservation and building. I did file,
For this part of it, though, the gazebo?
yes, with the
Okay.
building department, yes.
Right, because he's,
Yeah, he says it's filed, but no comments, so,
I saw that he initiated the
So-
process.
oh, has been
Lots
submitted, I'm
more
sorry, got it.
documentation.
Okay.
so we'd
Yes,
have to
no comment.
continue just based on that. But,
'Cause he didn't issue.
beyond that, I've got a problem that, we put in the conservation markers before, for that to be a no-touch area. You've done a beautiful job of maintaining that dune for all these years. It's,
Well, actually, I haven't done the good, God's done the good job because.
well,
the
you've
dunes
left
have
it
been
alone,
essentially
and that's what we want.
untouched. And actually, we planted dune grass further down from time to time. And we did have, my next door neighbor on my right, your left, actually put some snow fencing, so, and essentially it really was to keep some of the people in the summer from partying late at night on, the private property. So and actually, if you look at the dune area, it's really a fairly high elevation, even from the high tide, so that even if you looked at the storms in the past week, or you look at, it rarely comes up to the line where
Yeah.
there's been plantings. Although the risk is always there, anyone that's.
Now, as far as fencing in the dunes, snow fencing is actually, allowed. I can understand why you would want to put fencing there to keep people from the beach coming up on
It
your
would be a
area.
picket fence, it would not be a solid fence. The existing fence is a solid fence. This would, and in fact, what I'm proposing is to actually leave a 4-foot opening further recessed, because that, just to my left, or to your right, if you're looking to the water, is an easement area for the house next door to me and the 4 condominiums, and over the years, that's been obstructed multiple times. So I wanted to leave an opening so that those people could go across my property to get to the beach if it's obstructed in the future. And that's been a repetitive problem that those people have had.
And I'd have no issue with regular snow fencing, like has been there in the past, as opposed to the vinyl fencing.
The reason of the vinyl, it's a little more aesthetic, and I think it also will protect the dune grass that has been planted a little better. So that's sort of my thought process. I'm not a particular lover of fences, but I think, and in fact, in 2021, I sent out letters to the entire neighborhood suggesting that everybody take kind of a uniform approach, because the summertime people are party hard down there, and that aesthetically it would be nice. And the response was universally positive with everyone.
I didn't make it out to the site, but based on the pictures, I know the area. It looks like it's a pretty high-functioning coastal dune. Would you agree with that? It's doing what it's supposed to do, move, and that's probably why you don't get flooding, because it's doing what it's supposed to do. So it sort of goes against, it doesn't sort of, it goes against our performance standards for coastal dune. We don't want to do anything that will impede the natural flow of the sand and the migration of sediment and water, which means putting a structure like that in there would probably do that.
The reason I selected a small gazebo, much smaller, is so that it would not impede the coastal area, because that's really critically important to me, because this is where I'm going to be spending my retirement years. So that's why it's really a sort of a de minimis impact on the dunes. you know, that's why, when I had spoken with Mr. Grafton, I said, I don't want a tennis court or anything out there. I want the dunes protected, because the dunes that I have, and Mr. Trainer next door, and the Healy's and the Fultons is very much exposed, whereas everywhere else, they've got artificial barriers. So we're all very, very conscious of the dunes ourselves. And we enjoy it, and we really do enjoy the natural beauty.
You do, yeah.
Joe?
This is a high-functioning dune. I would have a problem with a vinyl fence. And I really see the gazebo as something that will impact that dune. And it is outside of where we asked for the no-touch zone. And I have a problem with us saying no touch and then giving either one or two modifications in the no-touch zone. And I'd have to have some justification for that, because we do need to protect those dunes, and that really is a great functioning dune. And I think that doing anything to it would diminish the dune, which is something we really don't want to do, especially given what we know is our future. As much as I hate to say that, because I understand that you'd like to see and enjoy that.
Well, I also think that from a very common sense point of view, I don't see that what I'm asking for is deleterious to that dunes or environment. And I have 40 years there, 39 years at that property, so that's a high priority for me.
I've got 60, so 60 some odd.
Yeah, I mean, that's why what I'm asking for, I think, is reasonable. And in fact, some of the snow fencing, it gets trampled, it gets pulled out, then, I mean.
And I believe they've also come to the point now where they're starting to recommend against snow fencing in those areas as well.
I'm not sure on that. I was inclined, I'm along the same lines as Joe, that, we agreed to the conservation posts back when the project was done. There is existing snow fencing out there. I can understand why you would want to, keep people out of the area. I would be okay with snow fencing. But I'm inclined not to support the gazebo.
And the patio, Bert, I know we've kind of covered that.
I think because that's been proven to be pervious, and it's very close to, that may even be within the posts.
Right.
Personally, I'm okay with that. I'm not sure about.
I am too.
The posts haven't been set, we're going to be part of this. I think that this originally came up, we filed for a certificate of compliance, or someone did, on this.
Okay.
So if the markers get set, if they were set at the back, equal with the patio, I don't know if you want to move them from the original position or set them where they were proposed.
Well, you're gonna use this plan for your COC, right?
Yeah.
And before we approve the COC, we'll want those posts in.
The posts is correct.
Yeah, I think if they're in line with the, to encompass the patio.
Okay.
I was just speaking for myself. Other commissioners, please.
I agree with you.
It's hard to say no, but I agree. I think the patio's fine, put the post in, and the gazebo, I think,
I think our regulations are clear.
Yeah.
is a stretch, yeah.
Just one comment. You've been very lucky where you are, that your beach is actually accreting, your beach has grown over the years. But if they ever do these changes with the jetties that they're talking about, that could change. You may want all the protection you have there from the dune. So I think I think we need to continue this hearing anyway to get the
Floodplain
flood permit stuff finished off. You need to modify the drawing with the conservation posts.
Yep.
And
Snow fence.
snow fence as opposed to vinyl fence.
Okay, I'll work with the homeowner on that, and we'll continue it out for, at least till the next hearing, Mike, is that available on the 5th? We can look through the floodplain permit, does that make sense, Bill? We'll discuss some of these other things that we need to do.
Thank you for your understanding.
Beautiful property. Just wanna make
So
sure
I'd
it's-
like, do you think you'll be ready by April 5th?
Yeah.
Like, make a motion to continue the hearing to April 5th. Have I got a second?
Second.
Second, Joe. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you very much.
It was tough.
I never got a chance to jump.
Well, hearings continue, so if anybody has comments, have another chance. Next hearing is 120 Monitor Road. That's a continued hearing. John, you're hearing officer?
Pardon me? I'm the hearing officer, yes. And, are you, sorry, you,
Joe Webby, Webby
Joe Web-
Consulting. I'm here with Brian Johnson, the property owner.
okay, so I assumed it was you. I went out to the Mike and I went out to the property in February, and there was no owner to talk to. It was actually a hard piece of property to walk around.
Yeah, it was.
And I think one of the requests that Mike had made was that we wanted there was a lot of water on the right front corner, and we wanted to make sure there was no vegetated wetland there. And you submitted, the report that says there is no vegetated wetland resources in the area.
Correct.
So why don't you talk about the project, and then if there are any questions, we can get into that.
Yeah, so we're in land subject to coastal storm flowage. There's an existing dwelling there that was destroyed by fire a number of years ago. The applicant wishes to raise that and rebuild another, modest single-family home. In the general vicinity of that, we're basically moving it, so it conforms to the zoning setbacks. It is raised up out of the ground, obviously, to get the first floor and all that stuff out of the floodplain. It's kind of a stepped foundation that's obviously it's got to be constructed in conformance to all the FEMA, regulations as far as, flood vents and all of that kind of stuff. We are proposing, a little bit of fill material in the front just to kind of reduce the amount of steps into the porch. We're providing two Cultex systems to handle the storm water from the roof runoff. We're proposing a stone-packed apron, to protect the public way as we're getting in and out of there during construction. We're proposing an erosion control barrier around the property to protect the abutters down gradient, as well as, prevent any material from getting into the street. We are proposing a paved driveway, which is going to be kind of pitched into a drainage swale there with a small berm to prevent any runoff going onto the adjacent, properties. And that's about it that I can think of.
Okay.
Any
So I think
questions?
from our perspective, Mike, do you have any comments on the site?
Not particularly. Just raising and rebuilding a fire-damaged house.
Yep.
Per site visit, we saw what looked like potential isolated vegetated wetlands. Brad Holmes with ECR Consulting confirmed it was less than 400 square feet,
Yep.
and the vegetation did not meet the standards of being considered wetland, which I agree with them. So it's a very small area to the
Yeah.
front right corner of the property, approximately this location.
And the property has a floodplain permit on file, so I know Andrew's all set with that. I know that Andrew had some questions, building commissioner had some questions about some flood
I met with,
openings. Yep.
can I speak? I met with Andy the other night with, I also sent the notes that he made back to my architect, and she has already taken care of all the floodplain openings. And our
Okay.
structural engineer actually had that in his plan. That was included in the structural engineer's plan.
All right.
That she hadn't put in, but he had done that, so she's already changed and,
Okay. So I think from our perspective, the Conservation Commission perspective, I think we're good to go. I think, building commissioner, you just had some questions, you're working with him to resolve those, which is beyond our purview. So, Mike, do you have any special conditions that we want to?
Yep. Just the standard special conditions during construction of work, an insert regarding erosion control that it must be in place and do not use hay. And then under completion of work, that an elevation certificate should be required.
All right.
Just to not repeat my mistake, ask for public comments.
Are there any public comments? I kind of already did a review of them, but good point. Mr. O'Donnell? As always, Mr. O'Donnell. All right, with those special conditions, I'd like to make a motion to issue orders of, with condition. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so I think we're good to go?
Yep.
Good to go. Boy, that was when was that fire? How long has that house been like that?
I live on Nevada Street, and it was 8 years ago. Oh,
Only
we've
8
been
years
living
ago.
with that.
it may be 10 years now.
Yeah, but that,
So you're happy?
You're real happy.
Oh, very happy.
the neighbors,
Very
the
happy.
neighbors have got to be thrilled, yeah, because that is.
I'm a neighbor, I'm thrilled.
It's good. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know whose cards those are. There's some business cards on the ground there. So I'll figure out.
Yeah, they fell out
It
from the
might have been
previous
that gentleman
people.
sitting
They're Mike Seeley's
Okay.
cards.
Thank you.
Huh.
Thank you.
Must
Good
have
luck.
been somebody's pocket that I gave them to.
Okay, I think that
Luck with the
concludes
project.
the hearings. Move on to COCs. First one is SE 42-0671, Cambridge Realty Trust, 150 Cambridge Street. Can you explain that one, Mike?
Yep, this should be issued an invalid certificate of compliance. The reason being is that no work was actually done under that permit. The other permit for this property, SE 42-1213, has a complete certificate of compliance issued for that project number, which includes all the work on the
Okay, so
property.
this is just to correct a mistake.
Yeah, it's essentially to just close out a permit that was never worked on.
Yeah, make a motion to close and issue the invalid COC for 150 Cambridge Street. Do I get a second?
Second.
Second, Susan. All in favor?
Aye.
Next one is SE 42-2217, Paris Realty Trust, 350 Main Street. They're requesting an extension. Your comments on that, Mike?
Yeah, Greg, did you want to comment on that one? I see you're up on the screen.
No, we'd like to request this is Greg Morse Engineering for the record, requesting a 1-year extension for Paris Realty Trust. Paul Driscoll had sent a letter in March 3rd outlining what he's done over the past year, including he's cleaned out the drainage catch basins on the site, he's installed all of the conservation posts, he's provided the conservation restriction to town council, and he's installed the emergency gates. There is some remaining work to be done, planting of the rain garden in the cul-de-sac, as well as construction of the sidewalk and final top coat on the street. He had retained a landscaper to do the planting of the rain garden this past fall, but they had trouble getting stock for the planting, so I know he's trying to get that done this spring. The sidewalk I know is hopefully coming up this summer as well. So we'd like to request a 1-year extension if we could.
Was the last extension 1 year, do you know?
The last extension, I believe, was 6 months. I met with Paul Sherman too, and he indicated that he wanted to finish up some of the work there before, to kind of give enough time to finish up some of the work, such as finishing a few of the properties that are partially constructed. That way, the construction vehicles can come in and out without tearing up the new coat and new sidewalks on the streets.
Mike, if I remember right, this is a site that we've had a lot of issues with, and there was a rather large list of things that needed to be done. Do we know where we stand on those, and if we had continued issues on the property?
Not that I'm aware of. As far as the list goes, I do not have one in hand now. I can get one for the next meeting.
Rather than going ahead with a 1 year, I'd like to either continue this to another date to get better information on where we stand with those issues, or to go with a 6 month.
Yeah, have you been up there and taken a look lately?
I was up there the other day, just taking general site visit pictures.
Okay, because there was a lot of problems with erosion washing into the roads and, yeah. Yeah, we can do either thing. We can table it and take a closer look, or other commissioners support 6 months, or poll the commission. Ken, what do you think?
I mean, if you guys think that 6 months is reasonable, he's requesting a year. You could maybe meet in the middle, or 6 months would be adequate.
Greg, do you think it'd be possible to get most of this done in 6 months, or?
I think you'd have the plantings in the cul-de-sac done, the sidewalk would be done. The only thing that would really be outstanding at that point would be the final top coat of pavement. So.
I would go along with Joe because of the issues we've had. Give it 6 months, and then, you know, we'll see where things stand at that point.
Sure.
Be satisfactory?
Understood. Yep.
Especially in 6 months of good weather now, too. It's not like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say 6. Yep. Yeah.
Okay,
Agreed.
Susan?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay. So I make a motion to issue the extension for 6 months. Have I got a second?
Second.
John? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
Next one is 42-2672, 599 Summer Street, requesting an extension. Any comments on that one, Mike?
This is for a planting plan. They need an extension to complete the planting plan. My only comments on this one would be when I issue, or if the commission votes for me to issue the certificate of compliance, or actually the extension here, that the DEP sign be replaced. This is the DEP sign. You can't read it at all.
Okay.
It's faded greatly. but,
Okay, why don't you
yeah.
put that as a condition for the extension?
Sure.
Any comments, commissioners? So I make a motion to issue the extension for 599 Summer Street. You got a second?
Second.
Second, Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
Next one, SE 42-2859 DPW, 0 to 440 Ocean Street. Again, Mike, a little background on that.
Yeah, so this is for just the open DPW seawall repair permit, roughly stretching from 0 to 440 Ocean Street. Yeah, they just need some more time on this one.
Okay. Any discussion, commissioners?
How
Make-
long can we extend it for?
Is it 3 years they're
Yep.
requesting? Yeah. Make a motion to extend for 3 years. Get a second?
Second.
Second, Joe, all in favor?
Aye.
Next one, 42-2217, 224 School Street. This is for a COC for a septic system.
Yep.
All good, Mike?
Yep. So the septic system appears to be constructed as proposed. Here's the as-built plan. It's kind of just within the 100-foot buffer zone. The septic system itself is outside, but there is some piping and a tank within the 100. It looks like it was done according to work. Yep.
Okay, make a motion to issue the certificate of compliance for 224 School Street. I got a second?
Second.
Second, Ken, all in favor?
Aye.
And I'd like to make a motion to table SE 42-2976, 106 Preston Terrace.
Second?
Still waiting for input on that? Yeah, second, Susan?
Jump right in.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next one, 42-1074, 36 Old Ocean Street. No further information on that?
Rick, were you going to speak on this one?
Yeah, actually, that's why I was hanging around now. Did you get the revised plan, Mike, that I submitted for this?
Yes.
So, I've been working with the homeowner who is now living out of state. The house is still for sale, the property is still for sale. She does still come and go, but she's been away from work. At any rate, we're trying to get this certificate of compliance closed. I know the issue from before was there was a shed that was on the property that wasn't permitted on the,
Yep.
It was two old orders on this place that predate all of us on this property. I think it was like FE, like
Yeah.
100 and
Yeah,
200.
one might have even been under 100.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So at any rate, Mike had told me that the shed was was an issue that was on it, possibly the driveway was a little bit bigger. The shed has been removed from the property. It's gone altogether, and it was actually gone when I submitted the last plan. And
Oh, okay.
I realized that it was gone. So I had shown the shed on the plan, but it's now been gone. The area to me looks, it was just handwork, it wasn't anything dug up or anything. And then there was this asphalt area out front that was gravel for years, and over time it became gravel. The homeowner claims she worked for the building department and so forth. They used to have a store that was antique shop or something that was open there, and that was like a paved parking area, or there was a tent over or something in that area. So it's asphalt now. So we're trying to remediate around that. She doesn't really want to tear up the asphalt, if she can help it. I did a site inspection, I'm sure somebody's been out there. There's a lot of debris in that area that I have the red cloud area around, that's in between that asphalt area and the river. This is right up against the wetland area. There's tons of boards. That's some pictures that I submitted also with Mike. I don't know if they're clipped off the photo or whatever, but
Yeah.
at any rate, there's boards and timbers and lots of miscellaneous things between that asphalt area and the river itself that I think should be taken out of there as part of the mediation. At least I'm proposing that, to get all that stuff out of there and put a series of conservation markers along the edge of the lawn there and along the back of that asphalt area and behind that tennis court for the future homeowners to stay out of there. And the current owner, I've informed that this is what I was going to be discussing with the board tonight about possibly mitigating, removing all that stuff out of there and letting it revegetate and putting in these markers to get this thing marked up, is our hope. So that's why I'm here, and how you feel about that proposal.
That proposed septic system,
That's been approved by an RDA, it is not in, it will be going in soon, they've been kind of waiting for the sale of the property. We did, I think it was last spring or something, we got a RDA approved for that. So that has not happened yet. But it will be happening soon. I'm getting calls from contractors and so forth. Silk sock and everything else that was required as part of that, but as of yet, nothing's happened with it.
Have you got the pervious table on there?
Yes, it's at the bottom left. I have,
Sorry, I cut it out.
fancy snip there, cut off the
Yeah.
photos on the table, but it isn't there.
Apologies, Rick.
Make it look bad.
I tried to get everything that I thought you needed.
Yeah, well, I got it. There's a lot on that site.
Right, it's, you know, the whole impervious is pretty low.
Big property.
It's a big parcel.
Yeah.
So even though it does go up pretty close there. Also, I mean, this property's been around for,
One of the older houses in town, for sure. Part of that house, anyway. It's like
small
1,600
percentage.
type.
Yeah, exactly.
So I've been told. But yeah,
So that's not
I
going
believe it's been sold, and we did a lot of work with Phil and a little bit with Mike, trying to mop up these older ones in condition. There isn't even plans of, you know, it was napkin sketches showing driveways and pools and things. You know, there wasn't any real hard plans to go to. One of them we couldn't even find. I don't think it was ever recorded.
Yeah.
But the pool one was, and there was kind of a sketch of a driveway and the tennis court type of thing, but these old ones are always tricky.
So, Mike, you agree that the shed is gone, so that part of it is taken care of?
Yeah, I haven't had boots on the ground to verify that's been removed, but I take Rick's word for it.
And your feeling on cleaning up that area that he has clouded there?
I think that would be beneficial. It's like all, like Rick was saying, spare lumber, pallets, just kind of a mess. I think importantly, Rick has here the conservation posts, which would stop any further encroachment this side of the tennis court and asphalt area. It's kind of just wide open lawn area. So encroachment would be possible in the future. This would help deter some of that.
Okay, so this is basically just a discussion for you to understand what you can go forward with.
Well, I was proposing this, and it's kind of a tricky one. It's they applied for an order, a certificate of compliance, so here we are proposing to do stuff, so it's kind of different, but that was the initial application, was to try and close these out, and we didn't quite get there. But if they would do this work, and get these markers in and get this stuff cleaned out of there, potentially we could get the order closed. I mean, I know they'd like to have it closed like now, but I don't know how we can do that until this stuff was done or something. I guess that's what I mean.
Now, you've also got wetlands on the other side of the lot.
Oh, yeah.
So do we need to get a few conservation markers in there before?
I mean, there's a river on the rock right around this place. You know, on both sides, the same river that we just spent earlier tonight talking about fixing up and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're there, and the flags are still, most of the flags are still in place. It's flagged, well, for the septic system, I can't remember the date, I can't see it on the plan, but it was, yeah, I mean, I think at this point, they'd be open to setting some markers over in that area too. Just for whatever happens with this in the future, with business,
On the edge of lawn on the other side of the property. There's no proposed markers yet.
yeah, sure, I mean, come up in the buffer, right, 25 or something, and set some additional markers adjacent to the house there or something. Septic over there, obviously the new septic's going out front. But those are new tanks that are going in right there on the side of the house as part of the system.
Yeah, I mean, for the same reason, you've indicated these markers, you know, where you have them to
Sure.
you know, get them in the other areas too, I think.
Okay.
You know,
Great idea.
I'd be happy if you did it to Mike's satisfaction.
Okay. Perfect.
Other commissioners would
Oh, great, good idea.
Go for that.
So we really can't take a vote, so we'll just table this, and
So they have to get this, right, I know, yeah.
you can talk to your client, revise the as-built, and,
They gotta get this stuff done.
Yeah.
We're not gonna be able to sign off on this certificate of compliance until we get some stuff in there, add some more markers on the other side. And it seems like we're, in a good position at that time once we get all that work done. Okay, yeah, I'll work with that, Mike. I'm kind of in between.
yeah, no.
Selling it, and it's
We'll,
like,
we'll make a motion to table. Do you think you'll be April 5th? You want to come back, or give it some time?
I think we need to go for that April 5th. And if I have to continue it, I'll continue it, but at least we're,
Okay.
a possibility for that night, if there's any way that I know we get the markers in. I'm not cleaning that stuff up.
Okay, I make a motion to continue 36 Old Ocean Street until April 5th. If I get a second? Susan? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Rick.
I was quite upset when I realized that clock was an hour behind.
Yeah.
It is misleading.
But yes, I'm like, wow, this is good, we're gonna get.
Yeah, I know, I've been doing the same thing, yeah.
I don't even look at
And,
it.
I realized I didn't adjust my watch either, so my watch is confirming that.
Oh, really?
So I got an old school watch.
Oh,
so-
my God, how
yeah.
fun times with this.
You too. Take care, Rick.
I'd be in the wrong place. I have
Everyone uses their phone now, so.
Next one is SE 42-1500, 71 Constellation Road, and this one is,
No update.
so make a motion to table till April 5th.
Sure.
Got a second?
Why April 5th? That's only 2 weeks. We haven't heard anything from this for ages. Why not a month?
Sure.
At least
Third.
it's gonna reduce your burden, Mike.
Third Wednesday in April.
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to your suggestion. I just,
What do we do?
We always.
I mean, I guess,
Doesn't particularly matter.
I
We're
guess
kind of-
once they've come forward, we need to keep it on the agenda.
Yeah, unless you vote to deny it without prejudice, or right? Yeah.
At some point, if they're not gonna respond, you
Yeah.
can't keep it on the agenda.
Yeah.
I mean, this next one is even, I don't know how long this one's been on.
Yeah.
That's why I'm starting.
Respond that you're gonna give a,
71 Constellation Road, I'm not sure how long that one is that,
That's been on there since, I believe, this summer. I did the site visit for that one. It was either late spring or early summer.
summer
So,
22?
Yep. So I think we should contact them, and I can contact them and tell them that we need some sort of update on this, or the commission can move to deny without prejudice.
Yeah, and the next one, I think, is the same
Yeah.
situation.
Yep, that's right.
I like that course.
Yep.
So we really don't need to take a vote on either one of those at this time, right?
By ourselves.
And with that being done and no further business, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Take your
Okay.
pick.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.